welcome to Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Janika, and today we're going to be doing another episode. Now, I'm sure, as you guys probably know, I don't know if I mentioned it in the other Match Me Abroad episodes, but um, some of the episodes you're supposed to be getting during the Christmas break you did not get during the Christmas break, but of course you're still going to be getting them nonetheless. Nothing is going to change there. Just because I was late with episodes does not mean you should not get them. So that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so this one is the final episode for Cheat Unfinished Business. And the last episode, which you would have gotten during the Christmas break, we went through episodes 1, 2, 4. This episode, we're going to be doing the remaining episodes to close it out. Let's get into it. So, I will link in the show notes to the first episode because it will have been a little bit in case you do not know what happened or anything like that. So in case you need that refresher, you can go and listen to the other episode before this one. And you could also watch the episodes on Netflix if you never did. I highly recommend it. This show was dramatic. Okay, let's get into it. Episode 5. So we see Craig and Rebecca G talking. And, Jazz is like, oh yeah, I'm going to be sleeping in his bed because if you remember, the wall between the two homes have been knocked down. So Jazz, who is Craig's person, is like, I'm going to be sleeping in his bed. Craig is like, nah, I'm not ready for that because he is vibing with Rebecca. Um, and they are just flirting away like nothing is wrong and that the wall has not just been knocked down. So we'll leave them for a minute. Steph, I think it's Steph and Andre. I think I got their names wrong because I was like, who the hell is who? So I might have had their name wrong here. But we see them kissing. They're gonna go sleep in the same bed. Oh no. I know who I'm talking about. It's a black couple, but I don't know if her name was Steph. But anyways, his name is Andre, I believe. So Briggs, who is the person that Rebecca G came here for, they're talking. And she says, just because, I'm looking at you doesn't mean like we're good. Okay, cool, fine. But listen, I want to preface this before we finish this episode. I do not believe in anywhere in this that Rebecca owes Briggs, or Biggs, his name's Biggs anything. I don't think she does. However, you owe it to the process. You know what I mean? Whether you are going to continue on with this process with him or not. And I don't think you do. So that's your process. Your process is now done. You do not get to then intrude on somebody else's process. So I just want to say that part right here, right now. But anyways, um, yeah, she says she's not going to be getting over it. Now, I don't think I've mentioned this in the other episode because I just didn't talk about it, but I particularly do not like Tegan. I can understand, again, similarly to Rebecca, you do not owe this guy, his name is Sean, you don't owe him anything, right? You don't want to be with him, you don't have to be with him. No one's forcing you. However, you owe it to the process. So if you are done, be done. Say you're done. Leave. Don't hang on to this person for what reason I do not know, and then have this sanctimonious attitude towards him. You don't owe him anything, but then don't be a bitch, because that to me makes me think you care more that you want than you want the world to know. Because my thing is, it's like, I'm not gonna be a bitch to you if I don't give a shit about you. I'm gonna be a bitch to you because I care. And, which is, you're not gonna be a thought, you're not gonna be anything, you know? And I get that. But you owe it to the process to just be like, I'm in or I'm out. If you're in, be in. If you're out, well, leave. You do not need to stay here. Which is why I just didn't particularly like Tegan. But they are talking. And he's like, I'm trying. And I believe that he's trying. On the other hand, I also can understand her point of view where it's like, trying doesn't mean shit to me. You hurt me, you did this, that, or the other to me, and anything you do is not going to fix it. I totally get that. There are some women, not just women, there are people out here in this world who can look past an infidelity or cheating or lying or whatever. They can look past it, fix the issue, move on. But there are people who can't. So I understand that her process is like, I can't do this. But then you know the show. Why are you here? I mean, did they not tell you the premise of this show? Why are you here? Anyway, um, and he's like, you're just giving me attitude. And she's like, well, I'm here talking. Are you though? Are you? He asks, do you like me? And I think this is a very valid question. You You can't okay, I'm trying to think of how I'm saying this, make sure it makes sense in my head. You can like someone and not love them, but you can't love someone and not like them. So I think this question makes sense. So when he says, "Do you like me?" and she says, "I don't know anymore." Honey, that's your answer. That's your answer. You can like someone, not want to be with them. You can like them as a person, know they're genuinely a good person, but just not good for you, you know? But if you don't like a person, you're not getting back from that because the thing is that you don't like a person means you probably have the ick. So you're not going to get past that. So, I'm never going to say to, or I probably have, I might say to an ex, I don't particularly like you. And that's because of X, Y, or Z. But if I say, like, I like you as a person, means there's still a hope and there's still a chance. This girl's out. She's done. So she says, I don't know anymore. He says, why are we here? As I just asked. He says, do you like me? He asks the question again. And she says, well, I don't love you anymore, but that's not what he asked you. Love can be figured out. Like, I can't help you with that. I can't make you like me. I can't even make you love me, but I know that there's a chance. There's no chance if you don't like me. So he basically walks off at this point because he can't handle that, which again, to give her grace, she doesn't have to love you, my guy. She's not here because she still loves you. Or maybe, she's here because she's hoping maybe it can get there, you know. But it's very possible that she may not love you. She does not owe you that. You know what I mean? So you walking off doesn't help the cause. It just solidifies in her mind, well, this is why it didn't work. Or this is why it won't work. He says he wants to go home. Someone says, you're the cheater. You gotta give her time 100%. But someone else also says that she has to communicate what she needs 100% on that part as well. If you need something from him to help this process move along, please say what that is. But if there is also nothing that you need from him, or there is nothing that is going to fix the issue, you also need to say that. Jazz, however, is like, she's being unfair with him. Maybe she is being unfair with him due to this process. But I can also I'm kind of going ahead here. I can also understand from Tegan's perspective, though. Jazz isn't here because she's been cheated on. Jazz is here because she was technically the other woman. You, maybe in other circumstances, you can understand where she's coming from. But in the current circumstance that you are in with Craig, you do not understand that process. Because you are here because he was cheating with you. She didn't know that. fair enough, but you were still the other woman. You do not have the same experience as Tegan. Anyway, Jazz does confront Tegan about this, which I understand why she did, but on the other hand, I wish she kind of stayed out of it a little bit. But she does confront her, saying, like, you hurt his feelings. And Tegan's like, but he hurt mine. Okay, fair enough. He hurt your feelings. But tit for tat isn't going to help with this process. So again, why are you here? I guess. And she's like, he walked away like a baby. I think, okay, her saying this confuses me. Do you want him to disregard your feelings? Get mad, whatever? Like, is that what you want? Or do you want him to de-escalate? Like, I don't know if him walking away from arguments and situations is a pattern for him. I can't remember if that ever came up. But, um, I don't know. I feel like you although that can be, I'm sure, triggering for some people, and I'm sure even for me, if my boyfriend was constantly walking away from me, that would be triggering for me as well. But I can also, because how I think me and my boyfriend tend to have similar ways of dealing with conflict. And that conflict resolution, I guess, is yes, we may fight. Yes, we may be in the moment. Yes, we might try to fix it in the moment. But if it's a really bad argument, especially me, I need to step away. I need to know how I'm going to say things. I need to think through how I'm going to say it because I know that I can be harsh with my words sometimes. And I know that he does not respond to it that way. So although I'm doing it for my benefit, but I'm also doing it for his, I recognize his weaknesses and I recognize the way he also needs to deal with conflict. And you learn that about a person over time, but that's how I do things. It's not about walking away, it's about de escalating and knowing that we're not going to resolve it in this moment. We are not going to be able to do that. So let's take a minute, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, a day, or whatever, come back to it and try to resolve. Now, I know there are some cases where, yes, people are going to run away from situations. Um, but that's when, like, in those moments, you need to then be like, okay, listen, I don't like when you do that. Let's try to figure something out so we can, sometimes you have to have a resolution about how you were resolute. I'm not saying that's not what she did, but just based on who we are seeing in this show, it kind of comes across of she doesn't think about what he needs and is only thinking about her needs. But in a partnership, you can't just think about one person's needs. You need to think about yours, yes, but you also need to think about theirs and figure out a way where it's going to work. Anyways, um, so when she says, like, he walked away like a baby, Jazz says, like, I don't think so. But she's like, but I do. It's my opinion. It's my opinion. And sure, it's your opinion, but at the same time, it's like, is your opinion correct? I hate when people says, well, it's my opinion, and it's like, you think that's, that's, I wouldn't accept that. Sure. But anyways, so people are gossiping about Craig and Rebecca because everyone except for Jazz and Biggs knows that something's afoot with these two. Um, and of course, as we were talking about previously, he is not sharing a bed with Jazz this night. However, Rebecca C and Dan are sharing a bed and they have had sex the first night. Anyways, more on that later. So Tegan and Sean have an intervention with Hot Paul. Um, he basically says, intelligence-wise, between the two, there's no balance. He feels inferior to her, intelligence-wise, um, which can impact communication. Fair enough. And Paul says when he freezes or has flight or fight, he does not communicate. And when he does, he doesn't feel safe. And I can understand where that's coming from. She doesn't feel like someone where he can be safe with. Um, anyway, he needs to feel safe, as does she, of course. But how can we make him feel safe? Um, so Amanda is here. That's the blonde chick that I didn't know her name before. Things are about to change for the next couple of days, she tells us. Some of you are going to be talking to your friends and family to see if you're making the right decisions. Let's refresh. Everyone is seeing their friends and family except for Jazz and Craig. Anyways, so Steph and Andre are up first. Her sister is here. His best friend is here. So he says, let me address the elephant in the room. So I did cheat on her. And her sister says, do you think it was only one time, like saying it to her, that he only did it once? And Steph is like, well, he says it was 3 times with the same person and that there was no feelings involved. And I think her sister is like, well, how could there be no feelings involved? Girl, you must not have been with men or whatever, float your boat, without there being some form of lack of feelings. You know what I mean? Where it's just sex. Women are capable of it too. I sure have done it. So to sit here and actually say, well, how is that? Of course it's possible. Of course it's possible to have sex with somebody and there not be emotional feelings involved. It's sex. That's all it is. So I don't think that's impossible. Doesn't change anything, but it is 100% possible. Um his friend is like, that's one then? I don't know what that means. Her sister is like, okay, here we go. So she says, like, do you believe that there was no feelings? That it was only casual? But her sister says everyone makes mistakes. And how he had spoken today, I can forgive him. So there we go. Yay. Rebecca G comes to hang out with Craig once Jazz walks off. Like, literally, it's like she's a vulture waiting for Jazz to walk away before she pounces on Craig. It's sad, actually. It's actually very sad. So we see Sean trying again with Tegan after the little intervention that they had, and she's just not allowing him in. So again, why are we here? If you know you do not want to be here with this person, let him go. Move on. Amberly and Kieran are talking before seeing loved ones. And she's upset with him that he ended up hanging out with girls, I think while he was single. It actually came up the night before. But because I didn't remember any of their names, I'm like, I'll wait till I get a name. But that is what happened. Um, so Tegan and Steph tell Rebecca G, you gotta be careful, about Craig. and and they're saying, now that the house is one big house now, Craig and Biggs are friends. But come on, tell you something. Rebecca doesn't give a shit because she doesn't give a shit about Biggs anymore. But Craig also doesn't give a shit because whatever he can get, he will get. And he doesn't give a shit about anybody else or how it looks. He's kind of like Diddy. Too soon? Too soon? Sorry. Never too soon. I'm trying. I want to, when I grow up, I want to be as petty as 50 Cent. That's what I'm looking to do. Anyways. So Amberly and Kieran are seeing her mom and I guess his friend. Mom is worried because She's like, I know I've seen her hurt before. And, and I guess she's saying like seeing him not care. But if she wants to give you a chance, then we will give you a chance. Like, she's basically just going to follow whatever Amber Lee does. So, yeah. So, Sean is basically like, we ain't going anywhere, him and Tegan. And he says, I come to you, I check on you, but you don't do anything in return or even receive what I'm doing because she hates your guts. It's not so much about whether or not she likes him. She hates him. She ups, and I'm not saying that as a joking. She actually hates this person. Um, she's like, you are not interested in me, and you won't admit it. Why she won't admit it, I don't know, but it's true. And she's pushing it all on him. And he says, I'm going home. You know what? Smartest decision. Good for him. He pulled the plug because guess what? I don't think she was ever going to. I think as long as she could have had a free vacation, she was never going to pull the plug. Before he leaves, he does try to say goodbye. And she says, like, don't talk to me. Why are you mad? Why are you mad because he's doing, this is why I don't like her. Why are you mad about the fact that he is finally doing the thing that you refused to do or didn't want to do? Why are you mad about it? You don't like him. You don't want anything to do with him. So why are you mad that he's saying, look, I'm going home? Because it has nothing to do with him. And that's why I don't like this bitch. You know what I mean? Like, no. I mean, be honest, you don't like him. As much as I don't particularly like Rebecca G and where things are going to go with her, I can at least give her a little bit more grace, a little bit more props. Because at least she's being honest with Biggs and being like, listen, I don't want anything to do with you. I'm pretty much done at this point. I'm really only here because I want to fuck that guy. Tegan can't even do that. Tegan can't be like, I don't want anything to do with you, but I'm here because I want a free vacation and I want to be on TV. She can't even do that. Anyway, um, she's like, I never want to talk to you again. It's like only because I want to go home. And Jazz comes over at this point and says, you have been nothing but nasty to him. And she says, like, you don't deserve him, and calls her a stupid bitch. And I don't disagree with her. I mean, she definitely is a bitch, that's for sure. Anywho's, Biggs is talking about Rebecca, and they say to him, if she didn't want to make it work, she wouldn't be here. Back. Let's go backwards. Incorrect. She doesn't give a shit about Biggs. She's only here because she wants to fuck Craig. And do I blame her? No. For now. That is going to change. That is going to change. I'll tell you one. But right now, I still think Greg is hot and I want to do dirty things to him and have him do dirty things to me. That will change. So, she then goes and talks to Greg and he admits that there are feelings there. Let me repeat this and hold on to this. He admits there are feelings there. Okay. He says, and I quote, and again, please hold on to this. I don't see the relationship progressing with Jazz. I'm going to repeat it because this is very important. I don't see the relationship progressing with Jazz. He says, I came here for her. How do I not know this is just a fling, being a fling with Rebecca? And she says, well, am I worth the risk? And that's where we head into the next episode. So episode 6. So again, she asks, am I worth the risk? And he says, I don't know. And he says, before I met her, I was 100% sure about Jazz, meaning before he met Rebecca G. As they're talking, Kieran just walks in and does not take the hint. He just sits down and says, what's up, guys? He doesn't even take the hint. Sir, we are in the middle of something right now. We're in the middle of drama right now. Can you please leave? But Olivia and Liam, they're next to see their loved ones. Celine is here and his sister. Now, if you need a refresher on who Celine is the one who ended up telling Olivia about the cheating, the one that Liam was denying initially. Yeah. Celine is like, so what I heard, was that true? And he says, yeah, it was true. And he says, I'm trying to make this work. And Celine is just not convinced. And I don't blame her for feeling that way. Liam is like, well, when it comes to relationships with your track record, you can't talk. My guy. Okay, can I, fellas, word of advice. I'm going to talk about Olivia in a second here. Word of advice. If you are trying to get in the good graces of your girlfriend's best friend, how about not talking about her track record in relationships? No, you don't talk about that. Because here's what that means, okay? That means Olivia is telling you shit, talking shit about her best friend behind her back to you, which, hey, we all talk about our friends, it's fine with our partners, but our partners are supposed to keep that shit on lockdown. You're not supposed to talk about the things that I am telling you behind closed doors while pillow talking. We're not supposed to talk about those things with our friends, okay? You can't talk, because again, like my boyfriend can't go off and start talking to Letitia, for example, about the things that I have told him, okay? Just as I cannot talk about anything that he has potentially said about any of his friends, which he doesn't do that anyways. And obviously, I respect certain things with my friends that I do not tell my boyfriend about, but nonetheless, we talk. That's what we do, right? That's what we do in relationships. The way that this man, with his whole chest, literally just said, well, your track record, excuse me, what track record? Who, one of y'all has been talking about my track record? Usually it's the best friend. Yikes. That's just bad on all parts. Now, the other side of things that I do want to talk about here is Olivia. Honey, if your man is talking shit not only to you behind your friend's back, but then is then taking that information and then telling it to her directly in front of you, you don't keep the relationship going at that point. How dare you disrespect my friendship, disrespect my friends? Because when you leave, the person who's still going to be here is her, or them, or whoever it is. That's the person still going to be here. Don't go around disrespecting my friends. So that relationship would be done. Now, I don't know how long her and Celine have been friends, but me and Letitia have been friends for over 20 years. Okay? Since we were 8 years old. I would be damned if anyone talked shit about or to my friend. No, that's not going to happen without either me bringing you down several fucking notches or then ending the relationship if you want to double down on your bullshit. I'll be fine. I'll find somebody else. So there's just a lot of bullshit on both ends with this comment that he has disputed. Olivia's like, I don't want you guys to argue because I love you both, nah, bitch. There's no argument. There's no loving you both. There is, sir, shut the fuck up, or I'll shut you the fuck down. How about that? That's different people. Anyway, Liam tells his sister, I don't care, for, I think I said his opinion, but for her opinion. Okay, why? Is it because Celine told, told on you? Is that it? Because, I don't, I don't know where this hatred is coming from besides the fact that Celine just told her friend something that she found out, which is what you're supposed to do if you're a true friend. You can't, you know, listen, I've been in a situation, not quite like this, but I've been in a situation where Letitia's had my back on things that I wasn't too keen with my boyfriend knowing about at the time. But even he was like, she's your friend. She's gonna have your back. I would expect nothing less. So I don't understand where this guy had like where his balls are coming from, really and truly. Selena's like, I won't speak to him again. She says you love him, but he bullshits you. I agree with that part. I do, I agree. And the thing is, the minute she says I want to speak to him again, this is where she's gonna have to choose. And she shouldn't have to choose because that's a tough place to be in. Um, but again, it's like you shouldn't have to feel between a rock and a hard place. Because as far as I'm concerned, if my boyfriend is disrespecting, like I've just said, my friend, no, that's not gonna work. Um, it's like you go to Thailand and he doesn't post you, so I guess like hiding her. And he says, I think he will do it again and again, and he may. Who knows? Anyway, enough with that. Rebecca G is like, I want to lie down. So Bex is like fluffing pillows, making her comfy, trying to like get into her good graces. Meanwhile, she's playing him a fool while flirting with Craig. Um, then we have Connor and I think it's Lucia. Not, I want to say Lucia because I knew Lucia. It's Lucia, I think. Um, it's their turn for family. Her sister and his friend are here. Neither of their people seem convinced about the start over that they are attempting to do. Same girl, same. But anyways, Craig says to Jazz, "I have to be careful of Bex, Rebecca, because you know I just feel like she's more clingy today." I'm sorry, what the fuck you say? She's more clingy today, sir, because you literally just said to her the night before, I don't think this relationship with Jazz is gonna work. The fuck, sir. And he's like, I don't know if you clocked it or not. And of course she's fucking clocked it. She's a woman. We clock things. Um, he's like, he doesn't, fucking know why she's like that. The fuck? Oh my God. So he's diabolical. He is sociopathic. He's a narcissist. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were to search the dictionary for the definition of narcissism, Craig is going to be the picture beside it, guaranteed. There's nobody else. I mean, there's so many other people, but my God. And trust me when I say this is the tip of the iceberg. It is gonna get worse. So Liam and Olivia, they're talking after the family situation. And she's like, no, those comments, like, they can't happen. That's what you gotta say to him? Those comments can't happen? I would have toughed him in his face. Those comments can't happen. Anyways, he says, I get that and I understand. The fuck? How about I'm sorry? How about let me apologize to her? I was in defense mode. I said some things that I shouldn't have said. It I understand. Understand this face, this hand to your face. Connor tells Lucia, Lucia, I'm sorry, I want to call her Lucia because I knew Lucia. Anyway, so Connor tells that what his friend said. 'Cause I think his friend was kind of saying, I can't remember what his friend said. Anyways, he said, she says to him, well, do you want this or no? Just kind of again, like, honestly, from my memory, I don't think the friend said anything crazy. But of course, she literally jumps from 0 to 1,000 in about 3 seconds. And it's like she's not actually processing what he is saying. She's just on the attack mode, basically. And he's like, I don't, or she's, I don't want to try if you don't want this. That's not what he said, but she can't help herself, anyways. Rebecca G says to Biggs, I won't get over it. I just don't see us getting back there because she'd rather fuck Craig. She listened. No offense to Biggs, but Biggs is, he looks like Bow Wow. He looks like Bow Wow and like Mike. Sorry. He does, though. Tell me I'm wrong. He looks like little Bow Wow. Not even Bow Wow. Little Bow Wow and like Mike. Seriously, God. So you have that against a man like Craig. Of course she wants to be with Craig. Sorry, Biggs, you seem like a nice man. Anyway, Craig pulls Rebecca G aside after he'd literally just told Jazz, she's so clingy today. Like, I don't know what her problem is. He pulls Rebecca aside, okay? And he says, clearly, I find you mad attractive. No clue why she's so clingy today. My God. But she keeps pushing it, right? But he says, I gotta see where it goes with Jazz. Okay, you know what? Fair enough. Fair enough that you feel like you need to see where things can go with Jazz. Unfair for you to be like, I don't know why she's so clingy. Okay. But the next morning, again, he continues to push it on Rebecca. Like, he has absolutely no part in this. He keeps saying, she's coming after me. She's clingy with me. It's nothing about what he's doing to encourage it. Rebecca C, we're taking a break from Rebecca G. Rebecca C is pissed because Dan is more concerned about Connor than spending breakfast with her. And Dan walks off. Okay, before I finish, if I remember this as I'm talking, Rebecca C can shut the fuck up. You wanna know why? Here's why. Because this girl constantly is like, he doesn't spend any time with me. He's always worried about other people. I know he can't even give me a cup of tea. I just want my cup of tea. How hard is it to ask a man to get me a cup of tea? I just want a man who's going to give me a cup of tea. Shut the fuck up about your cup of fucking tea. Listen, I know it's England. I know you guys like to drink tea. Listen, I come from a country that has heavy British influence. We also drink tea. Okay, we got the herbal teas, we got the camells and the peppermints, and ginger teas, and whatever else, nettle, lemon balm, spearmint. Can name off all the teas. Okay, I come from a country. My family comes from a country. We have a heavy British influence. But listen to me, okay? If you, ma'am, want a cup of tea, here's this bright freaking idea. Go get your own cup of tea. Brilliant freaking idea. You put the water to boil. You put the bag in the cup. You wait for 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the course of how you are boiling your water. And then you put said boiling water. Usually, if you're putting it into a pot, it will whistle. Or if you're putting it into a kettle, it will tell you when it's done. Me, sometimes I put it in the microwave and put it on for 2.5 minutes. Whichever floats your boat. Then you put the tea bag in and you pour the water in, or you put the tea bag into the water, whichever. Doesn't matter. You can add your sugar, you can add your milk, you can add your honey, your stevia, whatever the hell you want to put in your cup of tea. You wait for about 3 to 10 minutes for it to steep and cool, whatever you choose to do, and you drink it. Why do you need a man to do it for you? I can't stand this woman. Anyways, that was making tea with reality tea times two. It's quite fitting. Anyways, um, so anyway, Dan walks off and says, "This retreat has been focused on what I have done wrong, and not about what she's done wrong. Like, get her own goddamn cup of tea." Anyway, Steph and Andre have said, "I love you" to each other. They're fine. They're gonna be great. Anyways, so we are now in the reckoning room, and Lucia, do you trust Connor? Not right now. Don't know why you ever did, but anyways, because he said, because I am being honest. Because you're being too honest, that's the problem. So Liam, you have made progress, but how does Olivia know it's not an act? Fair question. Then Jazz says, well, he has been tested and he's transparent with me that Rebecca G, she has been flirting with him. Here's the thing, Craig. Here's the problem. Okay. You decide that I'm gonna be like, I don't know if she's so clingy. I don't understand why she's been so clingy. You're gonna lie through your damn teeth. But you forget what process you're in. And that you have something called reckoning rooms and she's going to tell your shit to every fucking buddy, including Rebecca G. So Rebecca G is gonna be like, excuse me, the fuck? Good. So Rebecca G, I'm sorry, Craig is like, oh, I wouldn't say flirting, sir. Roll the tapes because he literally said, she's so clingy, I don't get it. Rebecca says, well, it does take two to flirt. True. That is true. If you think about it, if someone's flirting with you and it's unwarranted and unwanted, it's not flirting, it's creepy. But if it's both parties contributing to the flirting, then yes, it's flirting. Steph says Rebecca wanted to talk to Craig because she felt it was reciprocated. Thank you, Steph, to the rescue. At least, listen, her storyline can't give us anything, but Steph can at least give to other people's storylines. Sounds about right. But anyways, that's episode 6. Episode 7. So Craig, have you let her on? Meaning Rebecca G. And Craig is like, I came to you with the truth and you're just putting it up here. That's the fucking process, you imbecile. And he's like, I'll just leave. Boy, bye. Because again, if you're going to get mad at her for just basically her saying, he didn't have to be transparent with me, but he was transparent with me and I appreciate it. Because that's what this was going to be. Instead, that's not what this was going to be. And you want to get mad about it. That's called narcissism. Anyway, Paul asked, did everyone see anything? No one says a goddamn thing. Y'all fucked up. Y'all know. Y'all see it. We see it. The cameraman are like, if he wants my opinion, you know what I mean? And Craig is like, the narrative is being spun. No, it's not. All Jazz said is based on what you told her. She knew nothing else. She's going based on what you told her. And in her mind, she's thinking, oh, my man is being honest with me. Meanwhile, so the narrative is not being spun, it's just being revealed. Craig says, I did say that I am here for Jazz, but you never know what could happen. Because Rebecca was like, this is what I said, And Jazz is like, okay, so you have a backup dancer. She's a backup dancer, but backup plan. And you're good with being a backup? Saying that to Rebecca. Clearly she is. And I'm going to save what I'm going to say until the time is right. So bear with me. Biggs is like, I didn't know this was going on. Of course not. Both him and Jazz were the ones in the dark here. And Rebecca's like, Now you know how it feels. So can I ask you this question then? Did you come on the show to stick it to Biggs? Or did you come on the show because you wanted to make it work with him? Because if you came on the show to stick it to Biggs, you're on the wrong show. You're on the wrong freaking show. And you wasted my time. My time. That's all I really care about right now is my time. Why are you here? Craig is like, are you done with this relationship? Saying it to Jazz. And I'm like, that's unfair to ask her. Because she's just in this moment finding out that there's more to what you told her than what she knew. I don't think she should make a decision now either, but I also don't think she owes you anything right now either. I think she's owed space, you know, to figure it out. She says, I don't know. And she says to him, and I think this is a fair question, if you were all about me, why are you anticipating the end? Because Craig is a type of man. Craig is the type of man you sleep with and have fun with. He's not one you can settle down with. He's not there yet, if he ever will be. And the problem with men like this is that they always have a backup plan. You don't want to be with a man that's going to constantly have a backup plan. Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. And this is the hard truth. When he met Jazz, she was the backup plan. He was in a relationship that he probably felt was on its last legs, and he needs to have a woman who's going to be there for him and keep his dick wet. Because God forbid if it's not, you know what I mean? So that's what happened with Jazz until Jazz found out. So now that he's, trying to win back Jazz, now he has to have the backup plan to the backup plan. Because if things don't work out with Jazz, well, there's this girl who thinks the world of me who I can also keep my dick wet with. Because again, God forbid. And I guarantee this is a spoiler if you don't want to know until we get to that point. So spoilers, skip ahead 3 seconds, starting now. That is what's going to happen with Rebecca. So this is the cycle that this man is a part of. And it's unfortunate. Anyways, it was unfortunate for the women. But anyways, she said, sorry, I read that already. Okay. So Jazz says, I want to go home, but we have conversations to have. So I'm willing to have those conversations. But Craig is like, but you're willing to make this work? She just told you, I'm willing to stay merely to have conversations with you to see whether or not this can work. That is your answer. That is all. And Rebecca says that she is done with Craig. Hold on to that for later. Biggs is like, oh no, she's saying she's done. She's saying she's done with Biggs. Biggs is like, thank God. Set my ass free. And she was trying to talk to some guy. And Craig is like, she wasn't trying. So why did you have a conversation with her then? And the whole thing, here's the thing. Rebecca didn't stay here for Biggs. She stayed here for Craig. So now that she feels rejected by Craig, and she's done. So that's basically the reckoning room. Tomorrow we find out that it's going to be their last day before making a decision on whether or not they're going to go into the real world. So Jazz is talking to Paul about what had happened. It's the next day, I believe. And he tells her, look beyond the surface. Have self-empowerment. Because this guy isn't going to empower you. Then Craig has a conversation with Paul. And he says, a little bit of vulnerability. But honestly, I don't think it's vulnerability. I think it is faking. He's just faking his way through things. But he says, we were friends and nothing more, saying about Rebecca. And when I felt it was more than that, he said, I shut it down. But Paul says, I think you were towing the line. 100% he was, which created ambiguity. And Craig says, He was all about jazz. Sure, sure, sure. But if you were, then there should never have been ambiguity. And that's true. That is true. And the thing is I feel like most of us women, we know when we're not the main focus. We can feel when that's happening. And we should be able to feel that. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I don't know. We can also get blinded by hope and by love and all that. But we have to make sure we stay in tune with men because they ain't gonna protect us. Anyways. So Liam asked Olivia to be his girlfriend, and she says, yes, ma'am. This man has disrespected your best friend. And then he asks you to be his girlfriend and you say yes. Are we okay? Am I crazy? Anyway, so Amberly and Steph both tell Jazz he was definitely flirting back. Finally, someone is telling her the truth. She's like, we all saw it on our side. So she goes and talks to him and she says, everyone saw you flirting with Rebecca. And he says, the people in the house will back me up. Actually, those are the people who are not backing you up anymore. And she says, we are here because you led a different life. And here you are doing it again. And ma'am, honey, he is always going to do it. Ladies, he is always going to do it. As beautiful of a man he is, for now, it changes for me. He is always going to do this. She feels embarrassed. He's begging her to not do this. And she says, we're done. You want to fuck off to Newcastle? And she says, I'm absolutely done. And he says, you will regret this. Let me repeat that. You will regret this. Because why? Because you're God's gift to women? No, she's not going to regret this. You're going to prove to her soon enough that she is not going to regret this decision. He's like, I tried to help you. You'll never find a man like me, honey. That's the point. That's the point. She doesn't want a man like you. She wants, and I wrote, a faithful one. And that ain't you. You're incapable of being faithful, clearly. So tomorrow's the final reckoning. The final reckoning. But tonight, you will notice some renovations because it's going to be guys and women separated. The ball is back up so they can think separate from their peoples. So at last reckoning, both parties will need to come up with deal breakers that you are not willing to give up on. And if you do not agree to the other's deal breakers, you got a decision to make. For those who make it, we'll go back to England. I say England, but it's actually UK. For 4 weeks and come back to the final reckoning in 4 weeks, which is basically their idea of a reunion. So we'll get to that. So interestingly, Andre says, I need you to trust me going to the gym because that is my place of solace. I don't know if she has issues with him going to the gym, thinking he's going to be looking at women or whatever. I've never thought that way about my boyfriend going to the gym. And I can never take that away from him or ever make it about me or anything because I know, kind of as Andre says here, it is also his solace, his is his getaway from life, and it keeps him grounded. And I would hate myself. But honestly, if I were to be like, oh, I don't like going to the gym or blah, 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 I would hate myself. Honestly, I would not be a good girlfriend to him in those moments. Now, I don't know Andre's reasons for, wanting to go to the gym, if it's just about the physical health or if it also ties in with his mental health or other things or whatever. Um, but you have to, I feel like we need to look past those things. Your worries about him going to the gym, because I guarantee you He's not paying attention to the women at the gym. He's not. They may be paying attention to him, but that's not his problem. You know what I mean? I don't know. I've never really, I mean, I've noticed like when I did go to the gym, I don't have a gym membership anymore, but I notice people, sure, but and I never went to the gym to stare at men. You know what I mean? Um, and what for me, it's just it's weird. But anyways, so yeah, he says that he says respect my privacy, so don't go through my phone. He says you can of course have my passcodes, but do not abuse the privilege because it is a privilege. Claps to that. I don't understand people who give each other um their phones to go through or whatever. My boyfriend does not have a lock on his phone, which I've actually told him you should have a lock on your phone for privacy reasons. Not just for me, but like just in general. And he has said like, you have full access to this, I don't need it. You wanna know why? Because I trust you. You also wanna know why? Because even if I didn't, that is not gonna help me trust you. I'm gonna constantly want to look at your phone, constantly look at your social media. I'm gonna constantly wanna do those things, and I don't wanna do that. You know what I mean? Like, I wanna feel comfortable enough that I can be like, "Okay, if I need to use your phone for something or whatever, may not be weird." And, he's done the same thing with me, whatever. That's fine, but I'm not gonna go through your phone. It's weird behavior. I'm too grown for that. Anyways, Rebecca C. and her damn tea. That's all she wants. That's her deal breaker. Whatever. But Dan says you can't because my number one priority, or so you can't be my number one priority, but you can be my main priority. You cannot mold me to be what you want me to be, meaning I'm not going to make your fucking cup of tea. And I don't think it's crazy to say you're not going to be my number one priority, but you'll be a main one. I don't think that's crazy. I don't expect my boyfriend to classify me as his number one priority, but I should be one of your priorities. You know what I mean? I I think I think those priorities can change. You know what I mean? If we're married, then damn straight I better be your number one priority. But when we have kids, I don't expect to be your number one priority. I expect my children, our children, to be your number one. And I'd be very, very close to, you know? Those things can change. And I think to expect, I don't know. I think we're just mincing. That's what it feels like to me. That's what I don't really particularly like Rebecca C. I want to like her. I don't like her though. Um, so when Lucia and Connor are next to kind of talk about their deal breakers, um, Amanda does say, okay, so Lucia, you can go first. But Connor is like, actually, can I go first? Out of respect for her. The shit's done. So he says, I think we have both grown so much. But, and that's how we ended episode 7. Episode 8, he says, I feel like we are at a breaking point, and I think that we are not going to go much further. She feels blindsided. I don't understand how she feels blindsided. But Paul comes in and says, honestly, at the last reckoning, I thought you were going to leave. I mean, a thing to her. And she says that she didn't because she had hope. I don't understand how you had hope, but anyways. But hope is not a strategy. A fucking man to that, Paul. And Lucia says, you cannot call on me. I think this is done. Basically saying, don't call me being like, don't do that. And he says, Connor, I think you did the right thing going first to spare her. I agree. But now we need the decisions from the other couples. Olivia and Liam say yes. Steph and Andre obviously say yes, and she's going to move in with him. I don't know, man. That felt like it's rushed. I don't know if it's a good idea. But anyways, Amberly and Kieran say yes. Rebecca and Dan, well, she says yes. And he says, I don't think I can be that man for you because I don't want to make your fucking tea. So they're not going together. They're breaking up. So we're in the UK. So for this point on, we're going to be doing couple by couple to keep it easier here. So Steph and Andre, they're going to be talking to Paul, and he's like, "So wait, you guys moved in together now?" When she said that, he didn't realize it was going to be like right there and then. He didn't know that. I did. He's like, "Yo, that's quick." Agreed. But they have no issues, so it's going to be fine, I guess. So that's Steph and Andre. Nothing more else to say there. Liam and Olivia. So we're seeing his mom, and she says, you can come to me if my son is being rubbish. Love it. His mom saying rubbish. And I guess maybe she just felt like she never had that kind of relationship with him or with his mother that she can do that. So it's good. So we're with Paul, and she's connecting with his family, but for her, there hasn't been much connecting for him. I don't think he's seen her family. And then Celine, we find out they're not friends anymore. So she does not feel any support from her side of things. As Paul says, listen, in a heterosexual relationship, when the woman's friends and family don't get along with a guy, it would only fracture the relationship. But it could also end. I don't disagree with that. Anyways, we have a little bit for Rebecca G. So she's telling her family about Craig, and her aunt says, "Why didn't you tell Jazz that he was flirting with you?" Very good question. She says, "I felt that he's the man, that he should do it. But girl code." But here's the problem. She doesn't give a shit about Jazz. That's all it says. But she says she still fancies him. Are you stupid? She's stupid. And her family's like, why? And based on his past, why? Because she just wants to fuck him. Let's be very real here. She's not in a relationship with him. And it's okay. You don't have to have a relationship with him. It's perfectly fine. You'd be like, I just want that dick. That's okay. Just be honest. So, anyways, more on that in a little bit. Amberly and Kieran. So they're meeting up with Paul, and they're not officially together yet, but she brings up him adding some woman on IG. She's uncomfortable with it. He says it's a double standard, which was a deal breaker for him, and she's not respecting it. So if it's a deal breaker in the relationship, I don't know. Then we see Craig, y'all. We see Craig waiting to meet someone. We also see both Jazz and Rebecca walking up somewhere. But Jazz is not meeting with Craig. She was meeting, I think, with Rebecca C. Craig is actually meeting with Rebecca G. Jazz says, listen, after we left, we hung out for a bit after coming back. But she says, they are done now. It's over. So hold on to that. Again, I'm going to repeat that. Jazz says that they hung out for a bit after they came back. And I also want to talk about something else that's going to come up a little later on about what hung out really meant. Rebecca has not tried to reach out to her either, she says. And he tells Rebecca he only saw Jazz once while bumping into her while getting his bags. That is not how Jazz was phrasing things. He said it was a 30-second thing. That's not, she says they went to each other's homes kind of thing. He also says, I don't want to leave right away because I didn't want to seem like going from woman to woman. He doesn't give a fuck about that. Yeah, but I left the next day because of you. What the fuck? My guy, you for real? You realize it's being played back, right? You being recorded. He never left because of Rebecca G. He left because she broke up with him. I didn't want to leave because it make it look like woman to woman. This guy is full of shit. And Rebecca G is dumb. Because the thing is, you saw the beginning stages of how full of shit this guy is. And you're over here being like, but I'm still fancy him. The fuck? For what reason? Now it's the final reckoning time. Everyone's coming back. And that is where we end episode 8. So let's head into episode 9, the final episode, y'all. An hour and 7 minutes in. So Tegan says, he texted me after the retreat and says he had to leave for him, which I think is totally okay. What she says wasn't surprising though, because everything he does is for him. Bitch, he owes you nothing, just like you owe him nothing. If he's gonna make it about him and he's gonna make sure he's doing what he needs to do for him because you are not looking out for him, then that's okay. That's perfectly fine. The fuck? Anyway, so Rebecca C is in another relationship. Y'all, it's been 4 weeks. She has managed to get into another relationship in 4 weeks. I mean, okay. But she knew this guy from before, so it's not that big of a deal. Amberly and Kieran are still not officially together. That is going to change as we go along. So Connor followed Lucia's friend, I believe, which is really weird. Why would you do that? Ew. Okay. So Olivia has seen her mom, but as for friends, she feels very isolated because of Celine, because they all are in the same friendship group. Paul says, don't isolate yourself from your friends. That is a concern. And that's the thing. That is where resentment is going to start building. And they're not going to last. There's just no way. If they do, if they're still together, goddamn. But I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, y'all better buckle up because it's going to get fun. Rebecca G. It's like, so I went on a date with Craig. It was nice. Neither Biggs or Jazz knew, of course. But the difference is he's been talking to her, to Jazz versus Rebecca has not said a word to Biggs. Then Jazz says he wanted to get back together. Like we had sex. So, wait, 30 seconds, my guy? That must have been a quick fuck. No. They maybe saw each other for those 30 seconds, as he says, at the airport. But, yeah, no. They definitely hung out, as Jazz says. And yeah, I'm not surprised that they had sex. Not surprised at all. He's like, oh, you told me not to get with Rebecca. Of course she told you not to get with Rebecca. That's any normal thing that any woman would say. Of course she didn't. She told you that. The fuck? But you fucked her. Oh, sorry. I said this, but you fucked my guy. Rebecca is like, this is what happened. And then he slept with Rebecca as well. Oh, yeah. So, because they basically admit, like how far did this date go? She pretty much solidifies they have sex as well, him and Rebecca. So he's gross. And this is where I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't care how good looking you are, you're disgusting. He's disgusting. Ugh. He says it was, definitive that we were getting back together. I think that's what he's saying about Chaz. And or saying that they were definitely not getting back together, I think. And she's like, well, that's a lie. He gave me a key. He's trying to say, well, you had a key from before. Didn't you guys break up 3 years ago? But key for what? He was still living with his girlfriend. Key for what? Okay. Anyway. And she's like, no, you gave me a new one. This is just back and forth. And Craig says, I just wish I didn't get involved with Jazz afterwards. No, you don't. No, you don't. You are happy with yourself. You're patting yourself on the back for fucking both of these women. You're not concerned about that whatsoever. Please. Here's the thing. If he was honest with Rebecca about the fact that he did have sex with Jazz, things might have gone maybe a little bit different for him if she still had sex with him afterwards. This would have gone different for you. But because you can't help but lie and lie and lie, this is what you get. But again, he doesn't care. It's not about the relationship for him. He's just trying to conquer, one vagina at a time. That's all it says. But the one person who we haven't heard from in all of this is poor Biggs. And he's like, I just wanted to be told. He is owed that. Because listen, yes, he may have cheated on you. Yeah, he may have done all of that. But then you don't try to make it work. You just move on. But because he made a choice to make it work, you owed him a lot more than you did. And ultimately, surprise well, no one, you made the cheater look good. So what was your end goal here? To make him look bad? Because I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for you. I feel bad for Biggs. Like, the fuck? This could have gone so much differently, Um, she's like, you cheat, which is true, but tit for tat is just, like I said, it's not okay. And Audrey's like, you did this at the expense of others. That's the difference here. Like, you wanted to get back at Biggs, but you also hurt Jazz in the meantime. What's what's the end goal here? Um, and Paul says, listen, Biggs, now you know how she feels, but Rebecca, you might not have owed it to him, but you owed it to the process. Amen. What you wanted from him, you should have given to him. Now for the final three couples, you need to make your final decisions. Liam and Olivia are choosing to stay together. And Kieran pretty much does this cute little speech asking her to be his girlfriend, and she says yes, so they're staying together. And he gives her a key to his place. Drop it anytime you want. You don't have to move in, but you have full access. Steph and Andre obviously are hell yes, they're doing this. So that's basically that. But then we get on-screen text with 9 months later. So since the retreat, Liam has been fully integrated with Olivia's friend group, and they have spent Christmas, birthdays, and many family occasions together. So they're going to be fine. Amber Lee moved in with Kieran shortly after the final reckoning. They're loving their new life and are planning to relocate to Manchester to buy a house together. Since reigniting their love in the retreat, Andre gave Steph a promise ring, and he's planning on proposing very soon. Yay! So that's the episode, y'all. I was gonna go and kind of check and see where everybody's at in terms of like Rebecca G, Pigs, Craig and Jazz, but honestly, I don't give a fuck about where Rebecca G is. I think I feel bad for her in the sense where she was been lied to again by Craig, but at the same time, I don't feel bad for her because like the writing was pretty on the wall, and you went and got involved with this person, gave him your body to then not be involved with them, like, you know what I mean? And I hate Craig, so I don't give a shit about him. All I'm gonna say here is I hope Biggs learns from the things that he did, and doesn't do that again in a relationship moving forward. And for Jazz, I hope that she doesn't ignore red flags, because I find it very hard to believe that there were not red flags with Craig. I find it very hard to believe, but they weren't there. And, we're all guilty of ignoring red flags, but I hope she learns in that sense. And I hope she's happy, living her best life in Craig's face. I would hope. But anyways, that is it, y'all. That is the end of Cheat Unfinished Business. So I don't know what's coming up next, but you'll be getting another episode very soon. Until then, guys, that is it for me. That is it for this episode. If you liked what you heard, bear with me because I have not done an outro for the podcast in quite some time. So bear with me here. So if you liked what you heard, you can go to any of your favorite podcast apps. You can like, follow, make sure you don't miss a single episode. And you can also rate the podcast at either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It'd be greatly appreciated. As a reminder, any 5-star ratings that are given to the podcast or any comments that are given to the podcast will be read on the podcast, which I have done in the past. If you want to connect with the podcast through social media, you can find me at Facebook and Instagram at Reality T times 2. You can also find me at Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Reality times 2 pod, I believe. You can email me at realityt times 2 at hotmail.com, and you can have any inquiries, anything like that, any ideas, any shows or episodes you want me to cover, you can definitely do that over there. And I am going back to our old website, and that is at solo.to/reality t times 2. There you can get any of the links to anything that I didn't mention here, any of the socials, website, email, all of that. It's all there for you. And we also have a new thing there where you can help support the podcast as well. It's called a tip jar. And you could tip whatever your heart's desire if you want to support the podcast, but don't want to necessarily support the podcast in going to Patreon, for example, or any of the links in any of the advertisements. You can do it there. But since we're on the topic of Patreon, you can head on over to patreon.com/reality t times 2, where there you can get access to even more than what I do here. There are 3 different tiers where you can get these shows ad free, as well as our next tier up where you would get another reality show that's being covered. So, we have Jersey Shore that's been getting covered. That's still being covered currently at the time of recording of this outro, but the future is bright with what's to come in the future, which I will be discussing, or I have discussed. I don't even know. And then also our next tier is a true crime tier as well. So you can definitely head over for that. But that is basically it. I will also just quickly mention here too, if you're interested in a different take of a podcast that I'm a part of, where we do things a little differently, you can head on over to Next Take Podcast, where I usually drop bonus episodes here on this feed, but there you get a lot more. And that podcast is making changes. We're growing, doing new things, but you can definitely head on over there if you want to just hear a little bit different than what I do over here. So you can find that podcast over at our website, solo.to/next take podcast. And there we'll have all the links to your desire that will link you to any of your favorite podcast apps or YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. Social medias, it's all over there. But of course, you can still find that podcast at any of your favorite podcast apps. But that is it for this episode. We'll see you next time with another episode. Bye, everybody.